Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sounds of 909, or welcome back if you're a lovely viewer. Today, me and Bryer from Bryer's Music Showcase will be covering the sixth studio album by legendary metal band Black Sabbath. This is arguably the last album in their Big Six, as some people call it. Uh, what people call their best six albums. Um, Today we'll find out. Well, if we'll find out if the album deserves to be in that category, and we'll eventually find out if the statement of this the first six albums are the best six albums is holds up. Um, Telling by how we've been talking off stream, it may or may not be true, but
Yeah.
yeah, super excited to talk about this album. How about you, Briar? You have anything to say before we begin?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Before I get into like the history, just to answer your question, yeah, this was definitely nice to kind of go back to this album. Yeah, I do agree. This is what most fans would consider the last of the classic period. Of course, they would do two more albums with Ozzy, but those albums are very divisive. So we'll see how we feel when we get to those. But besides that, so quick background information here. So you notice if you especially to the people who are watching, if you haven't noticed, Sabbath Blaze Sabbath came out in 73, but now we get the Sabotage and now it's 75. So there's a 2-year gap between those two albums. And the main reason that was the case was because of legal issues. Because in previous episodes, we've mentioned a guy named Patrick Meehan or whoever. He was their manager at the time, and he co-produced on a couple of the albums, even though he really didn't do anything. So eventually, the band fired him because they just didn't like what he was doing, and so Patrick got a little threw a hissy fit and decided to sue them. And so they spent the next 2 years just dealing with that, just getting out of the contracts. The record label at the time not was also kind of giving them a hard time as well. And so there were constant lawyers coming in the studio, just taking up all their time. And yep, and to the band, this whole thing was kind of like Sabotage, hence the name of the album. Um, but yeah, this is them kind of they decided kind of strip things back a little bit for this album. Because before they were like, really experimenting, but here they decided to kind of go back to a more heavier sound and not do so much experimentation. There's still some experimentation, of course, but not as much as the previous couple albums. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much all the background information. I do want to quickly talk about the album cover because to most Sabbath fans, people say this is probably one of their worst album covers because of how they're clearly not in unison in terms of the outfits. And the reason that is because they thought this was just the test shot. They didn't think this was the actual photo shoot. Hence why they're all dressed in different outfits. You have Ozzy in like this weird robe thing, and Bill's wearing his wife's red tights. And yeah, Geezer and Tony don't look too bad, but yeah, it's kind of an odd thing. But they tried to justify it, saying like, "Oh no, it totally fits the title because somebody sabotaged the photo shoot or something like that." But I don't know, it's kind of I wouldn't say it's the worst cover I've seen, but it's definitely interesting. I will say. Do you have any thoughts on the album cover?
I think it's a cool album cover.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought it was one of my for the longest time. It was my favorite album cover. There's
Mm,
actually until that
okay.
honor bestowed to Sabotage Sabbath, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I always think that's the best album cover because
Right.
that fits the theme of the album so well. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the only album cover that I like outright hate is the Born Again album cover, but
Right.
thankfully the music itself make more than makes up for that. Well,
Right. Yes.
some people strongly disagree with me for saying that, but some people are like, yeah, the album's just like the album cover, but yeah, that's the only album cover that I downright hate. There's stuff
Mm-hmm.
not the biggest fan of. That's something we should do. We should like one day we should make a video on just discussing the album covers because the
Right.
album covers are different or a completely different topic on Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, they always had interesting album covers.
Yeah, they've had some great ones, but they've had some missteps, of course.
Yes, I know you and Scott both don't like the Paranoid album cover.
Yeah, it's kind of corny.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not gonna say it's a bad album cover, but
Mhm.
it would have been much better if the album name was War Pigs because that fits
Mhm.
the album cover a whole lot better than Paranoid.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we both want to someday, we'll discuss all the album covers because they have more than enough albums to discuss the album covers.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's probably my second favorite album cover of theirs, which is weird
Okay.
because it's funny you say it's one of people argue it's one of their worst. I think it's one of their best, but
Okay.
it's weird. I thought people would agree with me on that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe because it maybe just comes down to Bill's red tights. Like, what the heck was he thinking that day? I'm assuming he was probably drunk that day.
true, true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not as bad as some. Like I can think of some worse album covers
Oh,
I've
oh
seen.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I would agree. I think there's way worse covers than this.
I know. I actually agree with you. I don't like the cover to "The Game" by Queen. That's just
Mhm.
they just you basically said it perfectly. It's just like they saw them after the making of Crazy Little Thing Colo. They're like, hey, you want to take a photo of you guys, and then
Right, yeah.
they're like, we should make an album cover of that and make it all grayish and
Mhm.
silverish.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not the best, but
Yeah.
my opinions on the album, I'm just gonna say it now. I think it's a little bit of a misstep after the amazing albums that came before it, specifically Volume 4 and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I feel like they were getting better and better through each release, those two, and even Master of Reality. I'd say it's a misstep from that album. And I feel like they're getting better and better, and then they just take a little bit of a misstep, and some bands do that. After going hearing through the story of that, it makes a whole lot more sense now how it happened and why it happened. You know,
Mhm.
so I respect the decision making that they made through this, but I respect this album more than I love it. Let's just say that. But
Mhm.
we'll go. I'll go. I'll after you see my reviews on the tracks, you'll know why. First track on the album, "A Hole in the Sky."
Oh
What do
yeah.
you
Oh yeah. Just a I mean, so far they've had very good album openers, and this is another one. I think it's another one of their great ones. Again, you can just hear that anger, that frustration in here because it just sounds so heavy, especially when it comes down to the guitars and the drums. Even the bass sounds very low, and very gritty as well. And even Ozzy, you can hear that again. It has a more aggressive vocal delivery here, which is very cool. And yeah, it's just this all out rock, real heavy rock song that just goes on. Um, they don't really play with much dynamics on this one. It just kind of stays in in that very that kind of fast pace, very very big sound. And lyrically, it's kind of interesting. I don't know what specifically it's talking about. I've heard many interpretations of it. Some say it's by the hole in the sky. It could be a metaphor for breaking out of prison, going to the afterlife. According to Geezer, it's supposed to be about air pollution, hole in the ozone layer or something like that. So take that for what you will, but and it's kind of it's kind of funny. Like the song just keeps getting heavier and heavier, and then it just immediately stops, immediately cuts, and then goes right into the next track, which definitely takes you out. Kind of little whiplash there, but still, regardless, still a really good opening track.
Yeah, I'm just saying now. It's the best track on the album.
Mm.
Just kicks you right in the face. Every time I listen to this track, I'm like, oh, this is epic.
Mhm.
This is on par with songs from the previous two albums. I'd say. Yeah, this is killer. Such a good song. And yeah, the abrupt stop always gets me. It's like, whoa.
Mhm.
Speaking of the abrupt stop, it goes right into the "Don't Start Too Late" track.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It just abrupts and it goes to this like really soft acoustic instrumental. It's interesting. I wonder the backstory behind that. It's just so cool.
Yeah, yeah. There's not too much behind it. Like you said, it's just a short. instrumental, and the title of the song is kind of supposed to be like an in joke because "Don't Start Too Late" is kind of when they would play before the engineer was ready, and so they'll start playing, and the engineer's like, "Hey, don't start yet," and they're like, "Too late," that sort of thing. So that's kind of the only thing about it. But yeah, I don't have much to say about it. It's just a short acoustic number. It's kind of more like an interlude that kind of takes us to the next track. So it's my least favorite on the album, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's good, but it's good as an interlude. You
Hmm.
basically said it perfectly. Yeah, nothing really to add on that. Uh, Next track on the album is "Symptom of the Universe."
All right. This is another great one for me. And so many people, from what I've heard from most Black Sabbath fans, this is usually the big standout track. This was kind of based on a dream Geezer had. I have no idea what's going on, but it sounds like he had a really wild trip, shall we say. But yeah, still great guitar riff again on this track. Just a really nice, very memorable sound to it. To most people, this is one of the songs that would kind of one of the precursors to thrash metal. I know Metallica has said this is one of their songs they played a lot, so you can kind of hear the influence. The drumming's it's really great, and another good Ozzy vocal performance here. And now they're kind of playing with dynamics again. Not as crazy as their previous stuff, but still they're kind of playing around with different tempos and stuff like that. The bass playing is great, sweet guitar solo, and by the time you get to like the 4 minute mark, so about the halfway point roughly, it completely changes into like this completely different song almost, where it's about a lot softer. The acoustic guitars are more prevalent, and really that just came about because it was part of like a they were just jamming and they decided to just include it at the end of the track. So kind of interesting. It's definitely a highlight for me. I do like all the things they included here. I can see why a lot of people will say this is their favorite Black Sabbath song on the album, and I'm not going to say where it is in my top five, but yeah, it's a definite highlight.
Yeah, it's a really good song. It's one of the stronger songs on the album. Really good stuff. I do like to change up at the end. They do that a lot though.
Hmm.
Like they have like one part of the song and then they change up at the end. They do that so much. It's like a Black Sabbath trademark thing at this point.
Mm.
Like I forgot what it's called. It's their signature move to do that at this point, and I like that. I like that about them. That's what makes them unique. Yeah, really good track. Uh, Next track on the album, Megalomania.
All right, so now we get to the longest song on the album at over 9 minutes. Uh, yeah. So basically, the song is kind of about just a megalomaniac, just this guy who's crazy about power, and it's supposed to be like it's supposed to. And this character is supposed to have like a split personality where you're getting both the good and the bad aspects of being power hungry, which is kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, the first starts out with this very slow, ominous beginning, and the song just gradually gets more heavier. The guitars really come in, and you just have this kind of nice, very, I guess, hypnotic melody that kind of plays throughout. And yeah, and then about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes in, starts to get more faster, gets more aggressive, and Ozzy really start to get in there. I like the part where he said "suck me." That's kind of funny. But and even Ozzy gets even more heavier. Like he's actually screaming. You don't really hear Ozzy scream that much, but it's actually pretty cool when he actually lets it out more. Again, probably going back to that that frustration with the legal stuff, probably. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very epic track, and yeah, another pretty good highlight for me.
It's a good song. I like it quite a bit. It's not like a song that I. It's in my top five, but it's not like
Hmm.
like this is what I. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Like just even though it's in my top five, like I wouldn't like it wouldn't go like it wouldn't like battle too well against like my in my top five against Volume 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Mhm.
It's good, but I feel like it goes on a little too long. Which normally I really like long songs, but for some reason this song felt a little too long. But
Mm.
I mean, it's the same. Yeah, yeah. I love 2112, and I don't feel like that song goes on for too long, even though that song's way longer than this song. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's good, but it's not like top tier Black Sabbath material.
Okay.
But it's really good though. It's pretty good.
Mhm.
I'm good. I'm just gonna say it now. Up until this point, no bad black no like bad Black Sabbath songs.
Right, yeah.
There's FX, but like it's bad enough for me to be like, this is stupid.
Mhm.
And funny, but like nothing that's like offensively bad. Like nothing that like what the hell were they thinking?
Right.
Like like not like oh are they trying to like insult my intelligence with making this like
Right. Mr. Wonderful.
yeah, but yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah, they don't have a bad Black Sabbath song yet.
Mhm.
Every band has a bad song.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
it happens. Even with our favorite bands, we all have a song that even our favorite bands have weak
Mhm.
songs. But it happens. Next song on the album, "Thrill of It All."
Alright. Pretty solid song here. Don't have too much to say about it. It's got a nice guitar riff on here, and the vocal melody along with the guitar has a nice, good feel to it, and it even has some piano on this track, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like that they have a little more adds more texture to the track. Um, and you get this one has a bit more synthesizers, or those are finally coming in more. Just has a pretty upbeat, more upbeat feel to it. Oh yeah, very good song.
It's a decent track. I don't have a whole lot to say about it either. It's
Mhm.
towards the bottom of my list. It's good. I like it. Next track on the album, Superstar or Superstar.
Yeah, Super Czar. So it's basically supposed to be a combination of superstar and czar. Of course, czar is a Russian leader.
Hmm.
Um, it's mainly an instrumental, aside from a choir, which is kind of interesting. I guess the big funny story behind it is that Ozzy didn't know they were gonna bring in choir, so when he came in the studio and saw them, they were like, he's like, he at first split second he thought he was in the wrong studio, so that surprised me. But you have Tony on the harp, which is kind of again kind of cool. Kind of really showing that Tony really, even though we know Tony as a great guitar player, like he can play other instruments. Um, it does have an epic feel to it, but again, I'm not gonna lie and say this is gonna be a song I'll go back to, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. It's the second weakest track on the album for me.
Mhm.
It's okay. This is again just shows kind of like what I was talking about earlier in the video that I feel like this is a step down for them. This is I I'm gonna say it. This is not a track that I would hear from Sabbath Bloody Sabbath or
Mhm.
like just the previous three albums. It's good, but it's not like with all the legal issues. I don't. It's like they didn't have enough time to like perfect what they were doing on the previous three albums. So it's good, but I don't know. I don't know what to say about it either. Next track, get a little better from
Mhm.
here. Am I going insane? Radio.
Yeah. Of course, the big glaring thing about the song is that it has radio at the end, and most people usually mistake it because when you see radio in the title, you think it's a radio cut. Like it's not the full song. It's just like something they'll put on the radio. That's actually not true. The term radio is actually British slang for going mental, like you go insane. So that's kind of why it's there. Hence why the beginning is "Am I going insane?" Um, yeah, I'm not too big onto this one. I think they released it as a single. I can't remember if they released this as a single or not, but in terms of their more I mean, it does have a more commercial sound to it. It's not like my favorite of their more commercial sounds. I don't know, because they did something similar to this on the last album with "Who Are You," which I think is a little bit better. I don't know. This one doesn't really work as great for me. I think the synths sound a bit too cheesy for me, which is kind of interesting because I do like synthesizers, but I don't think it. I don't know. This doesn't really work for me on this one, but it's not a bad song. Um, it's pretty still a good melody, and you hear some manic laughing, which leads into the next track. But yeah, don't yeah, it's an okay song.
It's a decent track. I agree. This is not one of their strongest songs. I mean, it's on my top five, but kind of like by default because there's only 8 tracks on this
Mhm.
album. So I don't know. It's good, but I'm gonna be honest. Besides the top 3 songs on this album, I don't see myself really going back to this album a whole lot. But speaking of top 3 songs, next song on the album, "The Rit," I think.
Ritz. Yeah, I think that's how I usually say it.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah. It's another. I think this is a really good closing song. Really ends this album on a good note. This is actually one of the rare times Ozzy actually wrote majority of the lyrics, because usually Geezer writes all the lyrics, but this is where Ozzy gets to shine a little bit. And this song is written directly about the legal problems, and you can hear the lyrics. It's pretty obvious what he's talking about. And again, Ozzy just has this very visceral vocal delivery here. Um, then you have like a moment where it kind of quiets down a bit, but you can still feel the tension in it. And then it changes back up, goes to more acoustic guitars, and then you hear a little bit of harpsichord, or at least something that sounds like a harpsichord, which is kind of cool. And it just goes into back into this heavy riff, which closes out the track, and then kind of funny. At the very end, you hear, I guess, this jug band thing that apparently Ozzy and Bill did because they were just messing around and they decided to just include it at the very end. They actually gave it a name. It's called "Blow on a Jug." That's what that little section was called. Again, it wasn't intended to be on the album, but they thought it would be kind of funny. But yeah, I think overall a really good way to close out the album.
Yeah, I think closes out the album quite well. So far, they're 6 for 6 for album openers and album closers. Um,
Mm,
yeah, really, really good stuff. Yeah, this is a really good song. It's definitely one of the best. This is the best song I've heard in the album for a while. After like a big thing of just decent to just okay songs, but yeah, this is a really, really good song. But yeah, this is good. I quite like it. Um, what is your top five?
Okay, top five for me. Number five, I have The Thrill of It All. Number four, Hole in the Sky. Number three, The Writ. Number two, Megalomania. And number one, Symptom of the Universe.
That's a
And
good. That's a
I,
top five.
as I already said my dishonorable would be Don't Starve Too Late.
Yeah, it's like a short instrumental. Um, my top five
Mhm.
would be Megalomania. Number four would be I'm Going Insane. Number three would be The Writ. Number two, Simple the Universe, and to me, that is easily the best track on the album, Hole in the Sky. It's the only track that I'd say will come close to being. This is like the only track that really in my opinion, that it has the quality of the previous albums. Even the other 2 songs in my top three, which I said are the only ones that I really go back to. Even those I feel miss the qualityness of the previous 2 albums. But maybe my mind will change when I re-listen to this
Mhm.
for when we rank the albums. But yeah, as of now, this isn't. Yeah, it's good, but it's not like top shelf Black Sabbath for me yet.
Mm.
Uh, what will you rate this album from a scale through 1 through 10?
All right. So I'm still gonna give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's still a really good album. And I do agree. I think they're some of the songs just aren't as high quality as the previous ones, but I feel like some of the highs on here are still very good. Um, some good riffs. Again, some very heavy moments on here, and some of Ozzy's more aggressive vocals that we've heard. Um, but again, there's still some stuff that I probably wouldn't go back to too often, but yeah, it's still a really good album. So 9 out of 10.
I'm actually giving it an 8 out of 10, which still higher than the score I gave Paranoid. But yeah, this is it surprised me because when I first heard this and I was remembering, I remember it being a lot better than it is now. But I don't know, it's weird.
Hmm.
Probably because Volume 4, Master of Reality, and the debut really grew on me.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
and yeah, I don't know. It's just for me, it's a little weird, but I mean, for like I remember it being this like masterpiece of an album. Now I'm just like it's good, but you know, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, so that's still I still think it's really enjoyable. Um, as of now, my ranking of these will I guess I'll rank the big six because that's usually the one that people really listen to. I'd say Paranoid at number 6, Sabotage at number 5, Black Sabbath at number 4, Master of Reality number 3, Volume 4 number 2, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath at number 1.
Mm. All right, cool.
And I forgot to tell you guys my updated top 10 because Sabbath Bloody Sabbath drastically changed my top 10 like Volume 4 did. My number 10 is Killing Yourself to Live. Number 9, Supernaut from Volume 4. Number 8, Cornucopia. Number 7, Bloody Sabbath. 6, Wheels of Confusion. Number 5, Under the Sun. Number 4, Sabra Cadabra. Cadabra. Number 3, Spiral Architect. Number 2, Who Are You? And my favorite Black Sabbath song as of now, National Acrobat. So sadly, none of the Sabotage tracks made it onto my top 10. It's
Hmm.
as of now, it's number 15, Hole in the Sky. So who knows? Maybe that might go up. Who knows? But
Hmm.
super excited to talk about that. But thank you guys for watching this video. Before I close out, is there anything you'd like to mention or add before we close out?
Yep, just tune in next time because next we're talking about technical ecstasy. So
Yes.
that one, I mean, of the two, like comparing the two, technical ecstasy and never say die. Usually, technical ecstasy is the one people seem to like the most. So we'll see if we agree with that.
Yes. Yeah, I will say this. I feel like both of those albums are super underrated. I feel like people give it too much of a hard time because they're not part of that top six of that big six. I still consider them great Ozzy Osbourne albums. They're still Ozzy albums. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know. I don't get why so many people dislike it. I don't know. Maybe because their sound is different. I don't know. It's just when I first heard the two albums, I'm like, oh yeah, all 8 of these Black Ozzy Osbourne albums supposed to be loved, but then I hear a lot
Hmm.
of people saying like, oh, the first 6 are great, but the last 2 were not as great. Hopefully, well, from your perspective, hopefully, I feel like hopefully my opinion on Black Sabbath gets a little better from here.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
But my last words. Really good Black Sabbath album we just reviewed. See you guys next week for Technical Ecstasy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long.